Once students start to have an understanding of what machine learning technologies can do and how they behave, I like to get them thinking about how they should be used. For this project, I had two groups of students. I asked one group to train the computer to recognize photos of fruit. They chose a few types of fruit, plum, banana, and pear, and they collected a load of training images that they could use to train a machine learning model. I asked the other group to train the computer to recognize photos of creatures. They chose a few types of creature, fish, insect, and bird, and they started collecting training images that they could use to train a machine learning model for that. I didn't tell them what we'd be using these for until they'd finished, but once their machine learning models were ready, I revealed what we'd be doing, asking the computer to recognize inkblot pictures. We made a Scratch project that would show an inkblot image to both of the group's machine learning models. Given the same inkblot image, one of the models would recognize it as a fish, insect, or bird, and the other model would recognize the same image as a plum, banana, or pear. Both machine learning models were trained using the same technology, but both were giving us very different answers to the same question. When I asked the students to explain why this would happen, they intuitively gave sensible explanations. They'd said things like, we've only trained this model to be able to recognize things as fish, insect, or bird, so that's all it knows how to do. Or they said things like, we've taught this model that everything is either a fish, insect, or a bird, so it's learned that everything is a fish, insect, or bird. My reason for getting them to work through this was a machine learning project that had received some media coverage a year or so earlier. The project, called Norman, involved training a machine learning system to recognize images from horror films, and then using that model to generate descriptions of inkblot images. What the students had created was a much simplified version of that same project, and with a kind of similar outcome. The students went through a collection of the news media reports about the Norman project, and they discussed what they thought of the way that the project was described in the media. A lot of the media coverage relied on sort of anthropomorphizing the machine learning model. It described how the AI had been traumatized by being forced to watch a lot of horror films. From their experience making a similar project, the students saw it a bit differently. They described this as a model that has been trained to recognize that everything is a scene from a horror film. All it has learned how to do is describe scenes from horror films. The media coverage described the machine learning model as being a psychopath. The students discussed whether or not they thought that a machine learning model that has only been trained with negative or upsetting images should be described as having a psychiatric disorder. What I liked most about this lesson was it got the students to think critically about how artificial intelligence is portrayed in the media, and to start forming their own opinions about some of the issues raised there. They also learned that if machine learning models are used to do something that is very different to what they're trained to do, the results can be unexpected or invalid.